All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service. And this morning, we will be turning our lenses to the U.S. presidential elections, which have been fought and won. Of course, we know now that former President Donald Trump has been re-elected a second time, and she defeated Kamala Harris, the incumbent vice president. But before we delve deeper into our conversation, let's listen into a background report put together by correspondent to Yemi Ajayi.
National congratulatory messages have started pouring in for the president-elect of the United States, Donald Trump, who makes history as one of the presidents of the United States to be elected the second time. He becomes the 47th United States president to occupy the White House. Results showed Trump beating Vice President Kamala Harris in a race far less tight than expected, as he triumphed in key battleground states. He cleared the threshold of the 270 electoral college votes required to clinch the White House, especially in the swing states currently, with 277 electoral votes against 224 for Democrat Kamala Harris. Donald Trump had pledged to bring a golden age to the United States, praising what he called the greatest political movement of all time by returning America to greatness. His victory immediately saw the soaring of the United States dollar as well as Bitcoin. Experts say the election might not really shift the foreign policy of the United States, as the Trump campaigns have emphasized more focus on Americans with his America First campaign. While the United States is the largest funder of global reproductive health programs, Trump slashed the funding during his presidency, extending a policy that barred U.S. aid from going to any organization that supported abortion. Experts said they believe that a second Trump presidency would likely do that again and could negatively affect the U.S. key HIV/AIDS program, especially in Africa. African governments hope that the next year the U.S. will renew the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, a Clinton-era policy that gives countries duty-free access to the United States market. Trump's signature initiative involving the continent was creating Prosper Africa, a U.S. agency designed to assist American companies doing business in Africa. However, he also offended many Africans during his first term, using a derogatory term to refer to countries on the continent. Now, could there be a twist in favor of Africa with the emergence of Donald Trump as the President of the United States? Our guest will be answering these questions and more shortly.
Thank you, Yemi Ajayi, for that background out there. And we have our guest to speak on the U.S. presidential election implications for Africa. Let me just introduce first Dr. Adoyi Matthew Omale. Dr. Omale is an international affairs analyst. Dr. Omale, you are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Okay, all right. Also joining us here is Dr. Olusoji Adeniyi, public and current affairs analyst. Dr. Adeniyi, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right.
All right, our next set of guests will be joining us for this conversation, joining us via Zoom. Let me first of all go to Lagos, where Ambassador Joe Keshi, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is joining us from. Excellency, good morning. Thank you for joining us from Lagos.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Have you also jackpot to Lagos? People don't think that when you go to Lagos, you jackpot. Anyway,
No,
also there.
No. I'm just here for a day.
All right. All right, then. We also have there Ambassador Dauda Danladi, former Nigerian High Commissioner to Pakistan. He's joining us from the United States. Ambassador, good to know that you are in the U.S.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. And also in the U.S. is Hamzat Lawal, co-convener, Not Too Young to Run movement, and Chief Executive, Connected Development Code. Hamzat, good morning, and thank you very much for finding time to join us. I know it's quite late in the U.S. at this time.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.
Tell us what is the atmosphere there in the U.S. Let's just have a feel of what the situation is like. Answer.
Okay. So yeah, well, there've been lots of excitement from. Well, it's mixed feelings when you talk to people on the street, depending on who you're talking to, if they're Democrats or Republicans. But there's been growing excitement. There's been congratulatory messages pouring in. Within some celebration by some support group. But they've been total calm. Businesses are going on as usual. No any tension or apprehension. So on ground here, everything is sort of going fine. In the US.
Your Excellency Ambassador Dada Banlede also give us a feel. This morning I was listening to, commentaries coming in from across, the different states, especially from the democratic popular states. And you could find people, some of them weeping, regrets and all that. What's the feel? What feelings are you getting?
Well, I just arrived about 24 hours ago. May I start really by expressing deepest condolence to Mr. President over the death of our indefatigable Chief of Army Staff. May his soul rest in peace. The feeling here, as has been said by Hamza, is that of mixed feelings. Of course, there are apprehensions. There are those that are excited that perhaps the economy, there will be a turnaround in the economy. There will be policy shifts with respect to the various conflicts going on in the world. And there are those that are a little bit pessimistic. But the overall is that the situation is very peaceful and everybody is going about its normal business without let or hindrance. And I think that's the beauty of democracy.
Okay.
Okay. You want to say something?
Yes, there was something that caught my attention this morning when Kamala Harris was, giving her speech, and she said two things. That first of all, the beauty of American democracy is that if you lose an election, you concede. That's the beauty. And then the second thing is that though they concede, they're not loyal to party or people. They're loyal to the Constitution.
Yeah.
These were two very fundamental, things she said this morning. And I'm just wondering what impact, is that making among the Democrats in the U.S.? Stay with you, Ambassador Danladi.
Well, I think the message is very clear. And in democracy, of course, there will be winners and there will be losers. But what is important is the
Morning, how are you?
strategic. And I think what Kamala said, unify,
Coffee and this.
is to unify that they can all work together towards promoting development in the United States.
All right. Thank you so much, Ambassador Danladi. Let's go to Ambassador Joe Keshi. Well, just look at the implications of this U.S. Presidential election and its impact on trade agreement and economic partnership, especially now that the emphasis of the president-elect is America first.
To the question Mrs. Abdurazak mentioned, let's remember very clearly that Donald Trump did not congratulate Joe Biden when Joe Biden won. We should remember that. He did not congratulate Joe Biden when Joe Biden won. Secondly, your newspaper review gentleman said it was the economy. No, I think this is a time in which the economy was not stupid. A week before the election, the economists of London published a very detailed report that indicated that as of today, the United States economy is the strongest economy in the world. None so close, very close to the United States economy. So this election was not decided on the economy. It was decided simply on cultural issues. It was decided partly also on race. And you have to look at the emerging data of how people voted to begin to understand what happened 2 days ago in the United States. But to direct reference to your question about Trump and the rest of the world, we already have a clear view of what to expect given Trump's first term in office, except there's a change of heart. And look, I'll be surprised if there'll be a change of heart. A leopard hardly changes its color. But except there's a change of heart, and let's hope that he will change. If he does not change, Trump's foreign policy would still be the same as his foreign policy during his first 4 years, about 4 years ago. But with clear reference to Africa and Nigeria in particular, I will continue to say this as I have said on other networks. We are just around the periphery of global development. Let's stop deceiving ourselves about our importance to these people. We are just at the periphery of global development, period. And so for someone like Trump, who had called us shithole country, who even when he was campaigning he didn't mention the whole of Africa, and included Congo, that these are characters from prisons and everything that were coming to the United States that he was going to deport. So let's calm our expectation. I'm not too sure he's going to do much for Africa. And in any case, why should we expect him to do much for Africa? He was not elected by Africans. He was elected to defend the interests of the United States. And that's what every president does, defend the interests of your country. And so I think the question we should be asking is, how do we, look inwards, begin to develop our own, economic development, and ensure that every election of either in Britain or in the United States, we do not ask the same question. How is it for us in Africa? Trump's first year, Africa was not on Trump's agenda. The only time he sent a delegation to Africa, he actually sacked his foreign minister, the Secretary of State, while the man was landing in Nigeria. How do you explain that? If he has respect, even for us in Nigeria, he could have allowed the gentleman, the former Mobile, chief executive, he could have allowed the gentleman to return home and relieve him of his appointment. You sent a man out to deliver a message and then you sacked him. How do you want the people that the recipients of that message to take it? That you have respect for them? Of course, no. So for me, my position is very clear. We should not expect much. Whatever comes from Trump during the next 4 years, we take it. And as somebody has rightly pointed out, a lot is going to change because he has said it. For example, he's going to impose taxes on all goods coming from any parts of the world into the United States.
Yes, Professor.
Now, I doubt whether he would do that because that would be cure.
Ambassador Keshi, thank you. I wanted, the two gentlemen here in the studio to also weigh in, give us their own opening remarks before we delve into, the nitty-gritty of the conversation. But as you rightly pointed out, nobody is actually expecting, Trump, to do, anything or something for Africa, what more Nigeria. What we're actually, concerned is whether we should brace up for the impact of the policies, his policies on climate change, for instance, his policies on trade, his policies on immigration, his policies on, other aspects of our diplomatic, yes. That's what we want to look at, not what is Trump having for us. So I will come back to the studio and I will start with Dr. Omali. And I'm just wondering, Trump, before the elections, the perception polls, I mean, almost gave everything to the Democrats. At some place they were, neck to neck, tie to tie, and all that. And then the actual election happened, and we're seeing Trump even taking over both the electoral college votes and the popular votes that they never won, during the last election, which Biden took. What do you think he did right? What can we learn from Trump's strategy?
Well, my immediate reaction to what you have said is very simple. It was glaring. The switch from Biden to Kamala was too short. Barely.
100 and something days.
Yes, barely 100 and something. And the American society, America is a very large country, very huge country. And you could see the campaign team struggling. They were struggling to meet up. While the Trump team has been there, though they had their own challenges, switching attention from Biden to Kamala. But essentially, drafting of Kamala into the race was too sudden, and it definitely affected the Democrats' campaign. That is one.
Even where they had, upper hand, even in their own,
yes, yes,
domain.
If you look at certain states are called swing states.
Yes.
They don't belong to the Democrats nor belong to the Republican. So these swing states, states like Pennsylvania, you see in one election they will vote for Democrats, in another election you cannot be too sure. So that is why both Kamala and Trump, they concentrated on the swing states. Georgia, Pennsylvania, and several other states that were the swing states. They concentrated heavily. In fact, both Trump and Kamala, they visited Pennsylvania 31 times at different times, even up to the day of the election, because Pennsylvania has 52 electoral votes, which is huge. California has over 430. So you could win just 2-3 states, and then you are hitting 100 electoral votes. So these swing states were very critical to the election, and both parties were interested in the swing states. The only interesting thing was that Trump was able to make inroad into traditional Democrat strongholds. And what could be responsible for that is basically two things, as Ambassador Keshi has said. The issue of culture. There were issues of LGBTQ, which has resonated in the American society. People begin to feel that they begin to demonize the Democratic Party. They demonize them for a lot of negative issues. Trump was insisting that he wants to return America to God. He wants to restore it on the path of. So it was really a direction that appealed to a lot of the evangelicals and other religious groups within the American society. Even, to be frank, even the Arabs towards the end of the election, the Arab Americans and the Latinos, they began to sympathize with Trump. Don't forget that all these attempts, I don't know, some people say the attempts were state managed. People begin to wonder, who are interested in killing this man? Why all this attempt? He was in his golf course playing golf, and then somebody was arrested with a gun nearby. So
Then he was shot again?
Yes, he was.
3 attempts.
Yes, 3 attempts. And then people begin to wonder. Then look at the drama in the courts. The various, almost 30 criminal charges in the various courts and so on. So it was the Democrats that actually marketed Donald Trump. If you look at, even in our elections here in Nigeria, you see that when you begin to vilify somebody, what happens is that people begin to wonder, why all this gang up? Why all this attempt? Then there must be something why they want to stop this man.
Even his unpredictability?
Yes. So people begin to, once the people perceive that there is an attempt to muzzle or stop a particular candidate, you are indirectly marketing that candidate. So I think that most of the issues that led to Trump winning is that, and secondly, the conflict in the world was also very instrumental. the conflict in the world, people felt that America needed a very strong president who could sit on top of the situation and whip certain leaders into line.
And they think that a female can't do that. I think that's
Claire, nobody is talking about gender.
I think no,
Don't bring that.
no, because
Okay,
if that were so,
Dr. Dini, let's get your own.
Clinton
Let's get your own view, and let's leave Claire alone now. He wants to bring in this gender issue now.
But of course.
All right. Of course, we can look at it, and maybe from the gender perspective as well. But a lot of people actually were surprised that despite all the conviction against the president-elect, and he was still able to, get the votes of the Americans. So what do you think happened?
I think first and foremost, over the last couple of months, my thinking had been, what can Nigeria and maybe Africa learn from the evolving, issues? The first thing was the late entry of Kamala Harris, which was obvious, a strategy that the Democrats found like a last straw that they just grabbed onto just to move forward. And people were wondering if Kamala Harris was actually the very best candidate that they had to push forward at that particular time, especially going back and knowing that there was a Trump female, in the first term, where you have the wife of the former
Clinton.
President Hillary Clinton against Trump at that time, and who was a senator and all of that. And then you're bringing another woman, and this woman was coming with a lot of baggages. You have the race baggage, you have the skin color, you have the
gender baggage?
gender issues, you have what was going on in the world, just like we were thinking
everywhere,
insecurity everywhere. So is it the time for America to be led by a woman? And if you look at the large trunk of people that are Trump's primary supporters, these are the people who would rather do the support for the alpha men, and they do not see anything positive about the time for America to show the world that gender is genuinely something that you can sell at this point. And if it were maybe a white American lady, perhaps that will have a bit more convincing. So it was like they were not just crossing the lines to show the world that gender was actually neutral, but that this particular gender is coming from mixed races that they themselves have struggled to accept, and then the color just did not meet their expectations. So I was seeing that as something we could learn from. Just the same way we look at people here and would say this is Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Efik, and minority tribes, and then we wonder what time we're going to give them. We still have all those battles as we speak today. The other thing that curious to me is also how someone could be so vilified, just like Dr. O'Malley said. How do you see that in Africa? If you were pushing a particular candidate and hammering that candidate left, right, and center, we saw that with the current president. We saw a whole lot of cans of worms that were thrown at him. But like he said, it just makes the candidates a lot more popular, makes that candidate is in the face of them. So I think politicians need to learn that and begin now to look at the issues, begin now to look at how do you prove that this candidate is good for the people, such that the people are more, enlightened, are more pushed to think that this candidate is the candidate that we want, rather than this candidate is the candidate that we should not have in position. And that would be a lesson for Africa, because all the time we keep thinking that by, splashing
smuggling.
muds and mudslinging, as they call it, then, we will get the candidates in a position that people will reject.
An
So it
excellent
will
point
be
you have raised.
more
Yes.
issues oriented.
A lot more issues oriented than the personality of the people. I mean, a few days we saw, in front of Trump Tower, some caricature of Trump and, a lady in front of in a very compromising position. That was just 2 days to the elections.
Anyway.
So you can imagine all kinds of things that they did.
Let's hear from Hamzat. Hamzat, I don't know. Let's look beyond, the other side of President-elect Donald Trump, and I'm wondering. One would wonder if it wasn't more of his consistency in terms of what he intends to do, the America First, Make America Great Again, and the accompanying, policies that would drive, that agenda. Trump has been consistent with this, even from his first, time out up till now. He's still telling you the same thing. Let's make America great again. His stance on immigration hasn't changed, on trade hasn't changed, on abortion hasn't changed, on AIDS hasn't changed. What do you think?
Before we came to America, we've been observing and following the trends around this election and the various patterns. And I've been here now for over a week, and we did some pre-election analysis, election day observation and monitoring, and now we're doing post-elections. And I think Trump's messaging was really clear from onset. And I think this resonated with the American people. And also, mind you, the Gen Zs were really targeted. So when I said the Gen Zs, the younger people, the first-time voters, we even went to some campuses here in America just to talk to some of these first-time voters. And Trump's message was clear. Mind you, Kamala Harris' messaging was not really clear. Before she started giving buzzwords and clear message, it took a while. Her campaign actually struggled. And if you follow the pre-election and the whole crisis when Joe Biden, mind you, he was muzzled out of the race. If you watch his body language and his speech, you would know that he was not happy. You would know that some leaders of the party have muzzled him out. And if you notice, it wasn't the party that nominated Kamala Harris. They were just also muzzled into accepting her because they didn't expect that Biden, when he was being muzzled to reject himself from the race, they didn't know he was going to endorse her. Mind you, he also took some role by the Obamas to also get her to win popular support in the party. So that turmoil took a lot of time for them to settle, and then she got her messaging right. And mind you, Donald Trump's campaign team, because most time, again, you need to look at who are the people leading this campaign. They're seasoned campaigners, they have experience, and Donald Trump sort of control and lead narrative. He's good with his messaging. He used a lot of data and targeting this messaging to different states, different demographies, and even young people. But I think for me, ultimately, as I follow these trends and patterns, what are the lessons for Nigeria and Africa? And I agree, Ambassador talked about looking inwards. And I think this is a call to action. Yes, I read President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's message, congratulatory message, and I like how he was clear and direct to President-elect Donald Trump. But I think beyond this is to look at what are our existing ties with the American people and the American government. And I'm glad we have a new Minister for Trade and Investment. We think it has to change and has to shift around what are these trade agreements, what are the benefits for Nigeria. Also look at global polarization, fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. And even the hand of external forces in our democracy, in our rule of law, and the role of government. Because again, when you look at all of this protests that, Nigerian young people have jumped on, there's a lot of lessons to learn on this. So now, African Union, but as we even discussed, let's even talk about ECOWAS. Because when you look at the crisis around the sub-region, because Nigeria is in the middle of all of this, and there's already a global conversation around we need a pact that works. both regionally, continental-wise, and even the world at large. Also, interestingly, it was during Donald Trump's time that the United Nations came out, because of Donald Trump's speech, that they have to now institute a reform. So I think we should expect a lot from Donald Trump in terms of, shaking the global economy, but also shaking the global politics and the context of how we do things and how things should be. And we know that we need peace. And this peace transcends beyond even Nigeria, peace and stability and security. And we know again, America, has world power weapons. Nigeria also rely on America, not only on trade and investment, but also training and also hardware, when it has to do with security. So there is a whole lot to unpack here. But I think also the Minister of Foreign Affairs needs to jump in front of this. I hope at some point, maybe, and if you ask me, before he's sworn into office, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to work with the Minister of Foreign Affairs to get Donald Trump on the phone and have very uncomfortable conversation with him. That where is Nigeria in your plan? Because if you didn't mention Nigeria during your campaign, Nigeria is a country that you cannot just sideline. Nigeria is an important power block in global politics, and we must take this and feel proud about it. So I hope President Tinubu gets on the phone with him, and when he's sworn into office, send a high-power delegation to him and make it clear. And when you go to him, go with demands. Go with demand, because again, global politics is about negotiation. You have to give something and you have to take something, and we must take something to them, demand what is needed to ensure stability, not just in Nigeria, but the sub-region. Because when you look at the politics around sub-Saharan Africa, it is really sensitive and it's timely for us to jump in front of this. And I hope Donald Trump's leadership will bring peace to the world. Look at the madness happening in Gaza. So how can we have this peace talk, and how important this is at this particular time, particularly young people losing hope? So how can we galvanize support and leverage on what's happening? For me, the politics is over in America. Now it's about leadership and governance. And if you listen to Kamala Harris, she said, lead the American people. So it's not about the Democrats again, it's not about the Republicans, it's now about the American people.
Thank you very much, Hamza, for that, your contribution there. I mean, we should expect a lot from this re-election, and that global politics is all about negotiation. So let's believe that the world leaders will begin to, bring out, their demands to negotiate with the president-elect. Let's go to Ambassador Danladi now. And I just want you to speak on how this re-election would influence global governance. Hamza has spoken a bit about it, but I just want to have your perspective on how this re-election would affect global governance and also international institutions.
Well, I think I'm very hopeful that there will be a shift, a big shift, because to make America great, it means America must assert its hegemony on the world. Right now, the biggest competitor to America is China. If you look at the portfolio of China's investment in Africa, it's over 282 billion US dollars. Now, China, for the past 15 years, is the largest investor in Africa. To compete, in comparison, the United States investment in Africa at the moment is no more than 50 billion US dollars. Yes, they have been providing humanitarian assistance. They have done well in also addressing counterterrorism. But I see Trump. One, Trump will withdraw, will ensure that the fight in Ukraine stops. Because the United States government, under Trump, I do not think can continue to fund the war in Ukraine. Already, the United States government has spent over 60 billion US dollars in Ukraine. This money could be channeled to improve the living condition of Americans. I see Trump also putting pressure to ensure that there is ceasefire in, between Israel and Hamas, because a lot of funds have also been pumped in. From the outbreak of this war between Israel and Hamas, the United States government has spent about 17 point something billion US dollars. And I don't think this situation can continue. Looking at the hyperinflation, looking at the various domestic challenges that America faces. So I can see that Trump's administration will ensure that these wars will stop. And by extension, I can see America under Trump playing a critical role towards ensuring a peaceful Africa. The war in Sudan, the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the terrorism that has afflicted the Sahel region, I think Trump will try to see that there is a stable environment within the African continent, because Africa houses 30% of all non-proven mineral resources. And the United States cannot compete with China if it does not have access to resources in Africa. I'm talking about critical resources like the lithium. Now, electric cars is now the vogue, and China is the largest producer. Why? Because China have access to the vast mineral deposits, resources in Africa. Going forward, I also see a situation whereby the ongoing infrastructural development that the United States is funding, the Lobito program, that is between the corridor connecting Zambia and Angola, that project that you about 1.5 billion, I don't think Trump will back down. I think Trump, sure, so that the free African continental trade would be a platform that Trump can use, leverage to boost the American economy. So what is important is for us to take strategic diplomatic steps that will appeal to Trump to market out.
Okay, Ambassador Danladi, thank you. Let's now bring our conversation back home. Of course, relating it with, Nigeria, not just Africa, but specifically Nigeria and what might happen. And I'm directing my question to Ambassador Joe Keshi. Well, Donald Trump may be leading America, through, again, the protectionist, policy, which America practiced in the pre-World War II years. I'm sure we all remember when U.S. placed some tariff on some amount of goods. But of course, we know what happened. That backfired because they could not cope with the Great Depression and all that. Now they say if Trump tweets, nation trembles, but when he speaks, nation braces up. So how might Nigeria brace up? Going by Trump's protectionist agenda?
Well, Claire, it will all depend on what the trade relations, especially what we sell to the Americans and what the Americans sell to us. Under Trump 1, it was simply transitional. You wanted an aircraft, you pay for it, period. If you pay, we deliver. It's as simple as that. Oh, but by the way, Claire, let me just divert a little to your statement about women. Again, the emerging data shows that America is not yet ready for a female president, period. Let's accept that. I know people have talked glowingly about making America great as Trump philosophy. Let's remember that Trump, 4 years, did not make America great. He inherited a booming economy from Obama, and significantly, he's going to inherit another economy that is the strongest economy in the world. But Trump has a fantastic propaganda machinery that he exploited during this election. But to your specific question, back to your specific question, it would all depend to the United States. And this is where I want to go back to what the Ambassador Lanladi or Dandadi said. You know, today, American investment in Nigeria is very low or insignificant. The largest investors are the Chinese, the Koreans, the Indians, the Japanese. So if you are looking at the people you want to strengthen your economic relationship with, I think that we should begin to look at this country and develop closer relationship. There are, I don't know how many Chinese companies, but I know there are more than 60 or 50 something in Nigeria. The Indians have about 136 companies, not to talk of the Koreans, not to talk of the Japanese. Before America was interested in the extractive industry, but they have actually disinvested, and they are now in, right further away into the sea. But they remain in the extractive industry. But the economy itself, that where the vast majority of the people operate, America is not involved when it comes to Nigeria or anywhere else in Africa that I know of. But that said, our fascination is that we also regard America as the leader in the world. They parade, the president as a leader of the world. And so we are obligated, no matter what, to maintain this relationship with the United States. So it is now left to us to fill this new administration. What exactly are we asking for? Or what exactly are we going to look for? And what would be our best, the most important issue that we like to discuss with the United States of America? You know, a couple of years ago, many years ago, America's focus was on helping us develop our, human capital, was helping us reform the justice system. If we can get them to do this under the Trump administration, that would be nice. I mean, that would be helpful to the Nigerian economy one way or the other, even on health issues. Beyond that, when it comes to investment, Americans are not looking at this part of the world. There are some who will come, but again, they have their specific interests, particularly in technology. It's another place we have to. But, in terms of technology, no, this is widespread. You can actually go to any part of the world, the countries I've named, to get any sort of technology you want. So for me, we need to consolidate with those who see Nigeria as an investment haven and who are investing their own capital into the Nigerian economy. Maybe when we begin to do that and we begin to prosper, the Americans themselves will realize that, maybe we made a mistake in not, being in this country. The other thing we need to understand is some of these countries that I mentioned are also investing heavily in America. And American investment, which is having problem, has always been towards Asia, not even in Europe. Number one, because of the population, some American companies moved in there. They were forced to return back after, Trump won, and I'm sure many of them are going to experience the same thing. So for us, we really need to sit down and look at our own trade sheet and decide what exactly or where exactly can we engage the United States. One gentleman said it's all about negotiations, period. There's no doubt about that. But you have to be sure of what you are negotiating for. If you do not have trade, what do you negotiate? Oil is not as attractive as it used to be anymore. And in any case, they have left into another sphere of the oil industry. So if we can get them even to play higher where they are today, that would be to our own best interest. But again, I caution, let's not be too enthusiastic about this regime. the emerging regime in the United States. What we need to do, prepare ourselves to engage the United States on our own terms, on the issues that really are priority to us. I heard somebody talk of climate change. For goodness sake, Trump doesn't believe in climate change, so don't expect anything, from him before on that. On global peace, look, we've already seen the immediate effect of Trump's victory. Netanyahu has sacked his Minister of Defense, and it has to do with Trump's victory. This is a gentleman that has been telling telling Netanyahu that the military has done enough, time to make a deal. But Netanyahu does not want to make a deal. He still has his own, views and ambition on how to deal with the Arab country that he's been fascinated with, Iran. And with Trump, God knows what will happen.
So much, Ambassador Keshi. I mean, you have spoken a lot that we shouldn't expect so much, from these Trump's administration.
Sorry,
when it
Demola,
comes to...
you know what Kamala Harris said during the campaign period? He said a Trump win, he will bring a list of enemies to the White House.
Anyway,
please
okay. I mean, since you have advised that we shouldn't be expecting much in the area of economy, from this re-election of Trump's. But what about the issue of immigration and refugee, Dr. O'Malley? I mean, going by Trump's stance on immigration and refugee and probably the diaspora, how might it affect, policies, down here in Africa, especially in Nigeria?
Well, my view on the issue of immigration, you see, I'm somebody that always believed that once you get your priorities right in your country, most of your citizens will not want to jackpot or go abroad, as the case may be. So I think, just like everybody has been saying here this morning, it is time that we look inward, repair our economy. I'm happy that Mr. President Bola Tinubu is taking the bull by the horn with a lot of reforms in our tax system, with a lot of reforms in our petroleum sector, removal of subsidy, and so on. All this is to stimulate our local economy so as to ensure that we are able to contain whatever, we're able to contain the poverty level, and we're able to run government efficiently so that our people can remain and look inwards. Now, the second aspect of Trump's immigration policy that I want to talk about is most of us in Africa have been complaining of brain drain. I'll be very happy if he can deport the number of people he has talked about so that our doctors can come back, so that our healthcare people can come back and contribute to the development of Nigeria.
But even in the Trump's first coming,
Yeah.
there was no
Trump
deportation. Trump won, like
No, that is what he has said now.
There was no deportation actually in Trump 1.
Yes.
This is Trump 2.
Yes.
So okay.
So even if I would not want to say that I want our people to be deported home, but if the place is not conducive for them, it will help our economy if they can come and contribute to our economy. That's my view. And why am I saying that? You see, as you are immigrating to another country, you should have it in mind that you are not, except if you naturalize, you are not a citizen of that country. So, and there's no reason why you must force yourself to remain in a particular country. We have been calling on our citizens that are in the diaspora to come home and also identify and contribute their own quota to the development. So to me, on issues of immigration, I don't think I have much problem with Trump, except maybe those who are residing there. They are the ones that might feel that those policies may be against their stay in the United States. But sincerely speaking, we as Africans, we as Nigerians, we should begin to think of how we can give incentives. For example, in the academia, ASU has been fighting that the pay for lecturers is very low, and because of that, a lot of them find it very attractive to go to universities in the US and other parts of the world. So we have to look at our remuneration pattern here. We have to look at how we address, because definitely nobody just wants to travel out and then go and stay in another person's country. We have to do the right things here so that we can make our country the way we want it to be.
Great again.
Yeah, so that we discourage this issue of moving out as much as possible. We can't stop it, but if we do the right things in our country, put the right mechanism in place, going to America or any other country for that matter will not be a vogue, will not be the trend. People want to remain back. And even, I remember in the 80s, Ghanaians were here.
Yeah.
Indians were here. Several Lebanese were here. If you go to Kano, you go, but when the Nigerian economy became very distorted, they all have to go back.
We had a lot of, Indians teachers
Yes,
in secondary schools.
yes, yes.
They taught us.
Yes.
In the 80s.
So they all have to go back to their country. So if what Trump is going to do is going to bring back our people who are in the diaspora, fine. But I am very indifferent about his immigration policies.
Okay, so
I'm being very frank.
I will still remain with trade because, I mean, that's a very significant aspect, and Trump has made it clear that, see, there will be barriers on foreign imports into our country. That is protecting America first. In fact, that's the core of his America first. And because we have a surplus trade relation with the U.S. in the area of crude and petroleum products. Of course, we know we have the Chevrons operating the ExxonMobil right here. Now, if that happens, and Trump does put a tariff on, all foreign imports, it's going to affect us. It's going to affect us. It's going to affect our economy, and it's going to affect our production and oil prices and all that. Now, might we do a retaliatory, tariff act?
Well, I think we are in a disadvantage. If you look at the options that the U.S. has always had, especially in trade, I mean, the surplus will always be in their favor. I mean, we are the ones who have, the capacity to feed the world, from our reserves. And the reason why Trump went on to cracking and, alternative oil and all of this.
The shale.
The shale was because he anticipated your retaliation that you were moving, and he quickly, positioned. I think any world leader worth their salt would always do that in the best interest of their own economy. It's the same thing that the Nigerian economy has suffered from, where we've been more dependent on imports than on commodity export. And any time that we're doing even commodity export, we're doing it at raw level. That did not give us the value chain that is, in our best interest. So if whatever it is that we're doing now, whether it's in trade, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in, services, if we don't build enough capacity in human capital, just like Ambassador Kashi said, and, we really, if we say we want, to retaliate, then to be able to be self-sufficient, we need to first look at our own, inward capacity. For instance, if you ask me, when we took away the first subsidy, we didn't do enough due diligence on our own internal, energy needs. Otherwise, we would have fully developed our gas resources.
Because that's the diversification now.
Exactly. Yeah. And we are gas producers. We are the ninth, largest producer in the world for gas. So whether the world changes to cleaner energy or not, we're going to live with our own gas resources forever. So it simply means that if we line up our whole country with our gas resources, for instance, then our dependence on the needs to import anything crude around us, that space would not be. Why is Dangote struggling? He's struggling because he's had to bring in crude from outside when we were the largest, producer in this region for crude. So we're talking about the exchange rate. Why should the exchange rate matter to us? Because, it's something you are getting right from your backyard. So it's not easy
this is the right time to even hit
to begin to hit that nail and decide on what we want to do along that value chain. Our public transportation system should have been completely, gasified by now, such that we can even control those prices. And once we control those prices, it will automatically control the prices of foodstuffs in the marketplace. If we have adequate infrastructure for, internal movements of our facilities, right, even those imports will become cheaper, because to move a container from Lagos to Kano to Port Harcourt to the rest of it would come at much lower prices if we're able to move them easily by rail, or easily by gas-powered or CNG-powered, automobiles. So it's not in our interest to continue to just think America is going to do this and then we'll wait for, a position of weakness. No, we should begin to build our capacity, anticipate their next move. I mean, Trump 2 is not going to be a kettle of fish. We are going to definitely feel AGOA went away and there was nothing anybody could do about it. American Progressive, the decision that he made, he said he's going to bring them back. But even when they came back, they were not, the AGOA nature. There was not that free, access and all of that. And the investment, just like Ambassador Keshe said, is nothing to write home about in terms of numbers compared to what the Chinese is doing. If you look in the vehicles, the transportation, system, cars that are affordable now as brand new are all Chinese or Korean made, and we're saying we want to make Nigerian cars, and the rest of them that are building in Nigeria are struggling because, all these are still areas of trade that we need to think about. So we need to look and sit back as a country and say,
sorry, I'm sorry to interject. You continue. You mentioned Innocent.
Yes.
And I just like to let you know that we just came back from Innocent's,
Factory.
Yes. You should see what Innocent has or what Innocent is doing. And people like that, indigenous, manufacturers of clean, energy vehicles should be encouraged.
They should
Incentives
be on the forefront of our modeling.
Precisely.
And that's it's not only in automobile, it's the same thing, across several value chain opportunities, including the so-called fintech. We're now the leader in Africa, as far as anyone is concerned, on this particular space. And then we should look at how do we build our own human capital such that we can compete with the world in that space. India did it by, providing laptops to secondary school students as far back as the late 80s. They became the headquarters of technology and ICT today. Mumbai rules the world in
so anyway, we're getting there. Dr. Osoji,
sorry, please.
We have to take a pause.
Okay.
The director is calling for a break.
Absolutely.
So we know that we need to build our capacity. But when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And the issue we are looking at today is the American election, the re-election of Donald Trump and the implications for Africa. Okay, let's bring in Amzat now. Amzat, earlier in your discussion, you talked about that we shouldn't expect much from this re-election, and that for global politics is all about negotiation. So I want just to ask you, what advice, would you give to African leaders and policymakers regarding engagement with Trump's administration?
I think first we should map and know, because you see, global politics is about relationship. Even if sometimes you negotiate from a point of weakness, I think Nigeria is positioned to negotiate from a point of strength. We have uranium, we have various natural resources that the world is in demand of. So we should definitely negotiate from a point of strength. But I think we should just map and see who has ties with Donald Trump and his campaign team. And also what are we going to engage them on? What are our clear demands? And how can we bring this forward before inauguration and even after inauguration? I think a negotiation team should be mapped out, chaired by probably the National Security Advisor and the Minister for Foreign Affairs to lead on this, and also jointly co-chaired by the Minister for Trade and Investment, because yes, you need the Foreign Minister to lead on the front around bilateral relationship, that NSA leads on national security, stabilization, and peace, and that of trade and investment talk about how can we garner foreign direct investment from the United States and continue this partnership that have lasted many decades before now. So I think that's my advice. But I also think how can we leverage on this to create sustainable jobs? Because the world is moving, and someone talked about fintech, and Nigeria is still a developing economy, and we are ripe to plug into the fintech ecosystem. And I see that the Ministry of Information and Communication, that's Boston Tijan, is leading on that front. So I think we should create values, create opportunities that will give hope to young people and take away this whole Japa syndrome, because you see the message by Donald Trump is America first. And we all know that he also changed the immigration policy that impacted people who want to immigrate, both legally and illegally. So I think we should create more opportunities, more values that are engaging for young people, not only in Africa, but in Nigeria as a country.
All right, thank you, Hamza. Let's also get Ambassador Danlade's view on, some of the areas that Trump, foreign policy might impact. Again, we've talked about the immigration. We've also talked about, trade tariff. How might his stance on climate change? We saw what Trump 1 did to climate change, and how a lot of countries that contribute large percentage to world pollution are unable to even pay their own pledged contributions. Now that Trump is back, what would happen to climate change and all the fight? And developing countries asking for some form of assistance to also address the issues of pollution.
Start by saying that Trump, as a businessman, believes in deals. And I think the way forward is for us to see how we can package our potentials and market these potentials, which means our Ministry of Trade and Investment, as well as the Foreign Affairs Ministry, our missions will have to strategize and market Nigeria. Yes, Trump does not believe in climate change, but I think with the devastating floods and the wildfires that has ravaged not only the United States but most parts of the globe, perhaps he will have a rethink. And of course, Trump will not be the only one that will lead. Trump will have a cabinet, and America has a very strong institution, and I believe they will try and convince Trump on the issue of climate change. But the long and short of it is a wake-up call for us in Nigeria to also begin to address some of the fundamental issues that have stultified development in Nigeria. The issue of energy, we should try and sort out the issue of energy. You cannot industrialize without energy. Today, we spend billions importing textile materials. We need to revamp, to rejuvenate our textile industries. In the agricultural sector, we need to bring back the old good days of cotton production so that we can have a vibrant textile industry. Pharmaceutical firms, unfortunately, have left Nigeria. We have a lot of pharmacists. What is required is for us to ensure that we can be able to have,
Yes, we lost Ambassador Danlade there. I do hope that we will get him back. So I don't know if Ambassador Keshi
can speak to that.
Yes, can speak to that, and also to the fact that we've been looking for a homegrown solution to some of our, healthcare needs. In the area of HIV, we also know that it was when Trump came, that funding in that aspect was also discontinued. And since then, we've been struggling to, of course, search for homegrown funds to address issues, some of those health issues. Now that he's back, like you said, Trump 2, it could be more devastating for us in terms of seeking for funds.
Well, that's part of American force, isn't it? when you come to think about it. Look, let me just say this, that I think I will advise every policymaker in Nigeria to pick up the document project 2025 or 2050 that was written by a bunch of conservatives on what the Trump 4 years will look like. And when you read that document, I'm not sure we'll be having this conversation the way we are having this conversation. It will probably scare you about what will happen, even to the United States of America itself, not to talk of the rest of the world. That being said, I think everybody has said it, we should prepare ourselves, irrespective of what happened. I sometimes feel that we focus more on what others can do for us than what we can do for ourselves. The ambassador was talking about, the loss of textile industry, the death of textile industries in this country. That was killed by cheap Chinese imports, when you come to think of it. You would have thought that northern leaders, for example, would have endeavored, the first thing is to ensure that we go back to the production of cotton. And then rebuild the fact, look, government has been, go look at your budget, for goodness sake. And again, I can speak on this because when I served as the permanent secretary to the cabinet of both President Obasanjo and Yar'Adua, I think twice we made a provision in the budget for the revival of the industry in the north. And today we have not revived those industries. So we ourselves need to begin to think seriously about this, that look, if you have to revive those industries, number one, you have to grow the cotton to start with. Number two, you have to impose some heavy tariffs to prevent cheap products from the rest of the world into our country. That's number one. But where should we focus on? Look, we should focus on the things that will help us advance in an accelerated manner. So where do we think the United States will help us? A lot. Probably not in the areas that we are talking of, but probably in the areas of technology. And here we have to go back to what we used to enjoy from the United States in the days gone by. We don't have to be happy that number one, United States, to my friend who says the guys who jackpot will be brought back. No, they will not. Those who will be affected by Trump's immigration are probably people more from Latin America who entered illegally, who are uneducated, and who will become a burden. But the same people are also useful to the Americans because they do the sort of jobs that Americans no longer do for themselves. So it's a two-way thing. And I'm sure that they will caution Trump on this, where, it doesn't make a difference if we continue to export people outside. But the government itself should decide, where do we need to focus in terms of capacity building? And look, at the time Nigeria stopped giving scholarship to its citizens to study abroad, the Chinese were sending almost 2,000 every year to the rest of the world. They were not studying medicine. They were simply studying technology. So when you see the rise of China today, you will see that China deliberately ensured that its citizens go around the world, study technology, study what the rest of the world is doing, and then come back home and begin to develop China. And the result of that policy that was enunciated a few years ago is what we are seeing in the rise of China, and the same thing in the rise of India. So we should be more strategic. we should be more focused, and we should decide where exactly do we need the United States assistance? Where is the comparative advantage that we should, leave oil for goodness sake. Leave all this, look, they will always give us arms if you can pay for it. And you don't have to go to the United States to buy that. Anybody today sells arms. Even if you go across Nigerian-Libyan border, you can buy arms. Okay, thank you so focus on the areas where you need technology most.
All right.
And that, for me, would be my advice to, the Nigerian states.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Ambassador Keshi, for your views there. We should be more strategic. We should look inward. Because of time, let me just quickly, in 2 or 1 minute, is there any area in which we can actually engage this administration for assistance? What about in the area of security, anti-terrorism, fighting, is there a way we can engage them in that area?
Yes, the U.S., especially the African Command, AFRICOM, I see Trump continuing with that policy because to be able to tackle the menace of terrorism in the Sahel and in the African region, I think the U.S., like somebody has said earlier, the U.S. has strong institutions. I don't see a major shift in American foreign policy in the fight against terrorism. In fact, under Trump, I see it more sustained.
More robust.
In Trump 1, during Trump 1, he did a lot in terms of fighting ISIS and also ensuring the stability of, sustaining the war against counter-terrorism. So I think he's going to sustain it, especially within the African continent. So you are right. We see that in Trump 2, that will be sustained. The AFRICOM will be empowered to also take proactives to police the waterways. I don't see him pulling out the U.S. troop in the Gulf of Guinea and so on. So they will be sustained. But he has a lot of work to do, especially in the Sahel, especially the insurgency around the Sahel region. So we can also partner with the U.S. in terms of training our military, in terms of providing, Ambassador Keji talked about, we buying any weapons. You could see under Jonathan, we were looking for Tucano aircraft. We couldn't.
You're talking about partnering with the U.S. in that area, but I'm just wondering how our diplomatic relations would be, because we all know U.S. stands with China, and we know our relationship with China at this moment. How might that affect our diplomatic relations with the U.S.?
Definitely going to be a balancing game, and knowing our own president, I think he's up to the task. Is quite savvy when it comes to the right words and the body language, which I won't give that to President Buhari because he just doesn't have that. He's a soldier.
He's a military man.
He's a military man. Yes.
Yes.
But here is President Tinubu. Is he could talk to two enemies and make them look like friends. So I think we're going to manage that space. And I also think that going forward, our relationship with China is not just Nigeria, China. It's actually Africa-China, based on the foreign policy of China towards Africa. So the position and the defensive position that I see is actually America coming in to try to reclaim some of the grounds that the Chinese. So it will definitely be to our own advantage at the end of the day, because we'll have two suitors. We'll be like the bride now if we can position ourselves right.
I'll be able to manage it well.
Hopefully.
I hope so. And I'm very positive that we have the team that can get it.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Soji Adeniyi, public and current affairs analyst. Thank you for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Also, I want to thank Dr. Adoyi Matthew Omale, international affairs analyst. Thank you for your contribution this morning. And we want to thank Ambassador Joe Keshi, former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador, thank you so much for your contribution this morning. We lost Ambassador Dauda Danladi. We thank him in absentia. And also Hamzat Lawal, convener, Not Too Young to Run Movement, Chief Executive, Connected Development. Thank you so much for your contribution on today's program. Thank you.
All right, Demola, we didn't lose Ambassador Danladi. We lost connection with him.
Oh.
So all right, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We'd like to thank you, and we'll see you again tomorrow by God's grace. I am Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak. Bye-bye.
This English, eh? English.
You're lucky Chukwudi is not here.
Amadi Maladio, you have a wonderful day.